A viewer wants to know how much deadly force is excessive. We'll talk about the mag dump scenario in just a minute with noted criminal defense attorney Tom Grieve. But first, we have a super secret giveaway going on right now, but it ends really soon. If you want to enter for your chance to win this long distance hole puncher absolutely free, click the link in the description down below. Okay, Tom, an interested viewer has asked the question, how much deadly force is excessive if I am facing an imminent deadly threat? So we establish it's an imminent deadly threat, and I mag dump on the guy, what's going to happen? I remember early on in the police academy, why'd you shoot him 6 times? Because 5 wasn't enough and 7 was too many. At some point, the deadly threat has to stop, and you have to stop using force. So let's talk about the mag dump defense, both as a criminal defense and as a defense against a bad guy.
Right. So let's just start with acknowledging the implicit problem with the mag dump, right? And for those of you who don't know, a mag dump means we have shot our magazine empty. If there were 15 rounds in our magazine, there are 0 left.
If you have a little single stack car arms, it's only 6 rounds. So
good news, bad news for you, right? So that's the mag dump. And the reason why I'm starting there is because it's going to be my first point, where the prosecution's argument becomes emphatically clear that if there were 20 shots, you would have shot 20 times. And if there were 30 shots, you would have shot 30 times. And you just kept shooting regardless of whether or not the threat stopped. You kept shooting because you were just going to keep shooting, right? So
I don't mean to cut you off, but would that then say your intent was not to stop the threat? You just intended to kill this guy.
100%, okay. Yes. So you are immediately opening up an attack line for the prosecutor on you. That, speaking as a defense attorney, I'd rather not be dealing with at closing arguments.
Yeah.
Now, look, I understand that if it was 100% necessary, then it's 100% necessary. The guy was high on PCP or whatever the case may be, and I kept shooting, he kept coming at me, and it wasn't until I emptied my magazine and then suddenly he collapsed. That's as unfortunate as it might be improbable, but in the event that happened, it's really just unfortunate. Because again, the prosecutor's arguments, like their opening and closing arguments, are right there.
Yeah.
They are right there, and it's something that's easy for members of the jury to understand and hang on to. Okay, so I think we're kind of assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, that this was a lawful shoot per se. In other words, they're a deadly threat.
I don't want to say lawful yet. We know
the first shot was lawful.
The first shot was lawful. Okay. We know it was an imminent deadly threat. We know that deadly force is justified.
Right.
Now, I really believe the intent of this viewer's question is, what happens if I just shoot the slide lock?
Sure.
And my contention here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you always do, is that shoot and assess, maybe not one round at a time, but if the threat was stopped after the 5th round and you put 10 more into this person, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that could be very problematic. And in the event that you did do that, let's say the whole thing's on video, right? And you did do that, and shots 6 through 15 were bad, shots 1 through 5 were good. A lot of the defense may be predicated upon, well, which shots were the lethal shots? And it's like, well, if shots 1 through 5 were 100% lethal, then, did we really change anything? And again, these are not exciting defense arguments to be presenting, to be clear. That's not a situation you want to be in if you can avoid it, all right? I want to kind of methodically break this down a little bit more. So we have to acknowledge something that you and I both know, which is the fact that people will be able to fire at different rates, right? In competition, they call that split times, right? Shot, shot, shot. If you fired 3 shots in a second, your split time's about 1/3 of a second, right? So shot, 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 right? Some people, if you've trained, they might be able to put 8 shots in a second or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And the less we talk about certain people like Jerry Michalik or something like that, the better, who might be able to truly mag dump 15, 20 rounds in under a second. I don't even know how fast that guy is.
Yeah.
So, but the point being is that you may not see, and it's reasonable to understand the fact that if we're taking X number of shots in under a second, right? Where X is just whatever our rate of fire is in under a second. Or heck, let's make this even better. Let's say under half a second, okay? Let's say you can do 4 shots in under half a second, and you take 4 shots and it's under half a second, and this is indisputably on the video evidence. Well, the bad guy probably doesn't have a whole lot of time to react to that in under half a second, which is a bit of a double-edged sword. Yep. Because on the one hand, it's, look, he was coming at me with the knife, right? And in under half a second, I put 4 shots center mass. And the only reason why I didn't do the 5th is because then he obviously stumbled and started to come forward, so I stopped, right? That's going to be the line of argumentation from the defense is, well, I took 4 shots, and as soon as I started to see that he was falling forward rather than lunging forward, I stopped shooting. That's why I stopped shooting. Yeah. I was shooting, I assessed, I stopped, period. The line from the prosecution is going to be, why didn't you do that after 3? Why didn't you do that after 2? Why didn't you do that after 1, right? So that's going to be the lines of argumentation you're going to be looking at your potential homicide trial. And this creates a trap for people who are seasoned shooters, is many of them do have really good split times. They might be able to put their splits, between shots might be well under 0.2 seconds, in the 0.12, 13, 14, 15 region, where you are talking about putting out, 6, 7, 8 shots in maybe even 9 shots in under a second. So you are walking yourself into the prosecution's argument if you do that. And I'm not saying that's fair, because at the end of the day, the use of deadly force laws are that I can use deadly force to stop a deadly threat against me, and once that threat stops, I have to stop too. That may have all abided, and you know what? That was really bad decision making for the bad guy to choose me, or to choose whoever it is that's got a lot of firearm training. But it doesn't change the fact that there's a bit of a trap there that prosecutors will spring on you. And you really have to think about, maybe train for, maybe I'm taking 2 or 3 shots and reassessing or something like that. Yeah. Or be prepared for the fact that there's going to be a double-edged sword to all that training.
And I fall back on, I went through Force Science Institute certification classes, and they're talking to us about the amount of time it takes you to recognize the change, and that is about 1/4 of a second. And then to tell yourself to stop shooting, that's about 1/4 of a second. And then to actually stop shooting, that's about 1/4 of a second. And so you're looking at 3/4 of a second to maybe a full second before you can stop your trigger finger from running, because you have to see what's happening. Your mind has to process it. You have to send the messages to your fingers to stop pulling the trigger. There's lots going on in this situation. But what I don't want people to do is train for the mag dump. Right. I don't want people to assume that I'm shooting this guy 15 times no matter what. And when we see things like that happen on officer-involved shootings, and we see the body cam footage of cops lighting people up, and there's I'm sorry, there's no other way to say that. It's always viewed in a bad light. And the question is always, why did you shoot so many times? And I think from a training protocol standpoint, you're absolutely right. Several shots, 3 is the number that I kind of train with and throw out there. 3 shots on target and assess. Were those 3 shots effective or not? Because it's a half a second, and now the bad guy already's got 3 bullets in him. Right. And then it protects you legally. It may not be the perfect situation tactically. Yeah, he's still falling forward with that knife. He might stick it in you, but at least from a legal defense side, and it helps. And I get back to this point that as defenders, we're always behind the power curve. Right. We're always waiting for someone to attack us, and we got to catch up.
Right, and no one's saying that this is fair. Right. And to be clear, I'm not suggesting, and I know you're not suggesting either, that you should allow yourself to be stabbed to help your defense arguments. Like, neither of us are saying that. So I can hear the keyboards clicking. Like, you can just stop that right now. Okay. What we are saying is that if you do that close-in knife attacker and you put 3 shots into them in that 0.4 seconds or something like that, right, or 0.5 seconds, going to shots 4, 5, 6, or whatever the case may be, you are escalating your legal danger that you are in.
Yep.
I am not cheering for that. I am not championing that. It is the bad guy who chose to attack you from this close in that necessitated you to maybe take 5, 6, 7, 8 shots to stop the threat because they're so close and you couldn't risk them. The fact that they were indeed stumbling rather than lunging at you. And you get into all these arguments. And I'm not saying there aren't good defense arguments. There are, especially if there's, well, not only potentially camera angles, but we also get to the fact that, there's going to be, I'm assuming if you put 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or in our question, 15 or 12 or however many rounds they have in their magazine, we're looking at an autopsy situation here.
Yeah.
Okay. They're going to be able to tell the degrees of entry and all that kind of stuff, and they'll be able to pretty reasonably calculate what this person was doing, were they falling forward and all that kind of stuff. So those are the arguments you're going to be coming right at you. And so if you're putting shots into the top of the guy's shoulder, into his back and all that other kind of stuff, look, I'm not saying that that is not a lawful shoot. It could absolutely be a lawful shoot. Like, let me be emphatically clear when I say that.
Yeah.
But what I am also saying is, once more, the prosecutor's arguments write themselves at that point, and you need to be prepared for that.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for your insight, Tom. Always a great help.
Thanks, Kevin.
Want to know the 3 biggest mistakes when carrying a handgun? Then click on the video next to me to reveal all 3 mistakes. Mistake number 2 may shock you. Everybody has their own cardinal rules for what they're going to do when they're carrying a gun. But right now, I'm going to give you 3 things that you must never do